problem. We have time. Yeah. Smaller crowd than we normally have today. So I'm delighted to introduce Chen-Chao Tao, who's associate professor and just stepped down as department head.
Yeah, wonderful.
Department of Communication Technology at National Chiao University in Hsinchu in Taiwan. And Chen-Chao got his PhD from Indiana, worked with Annie Lang and Eric Busey. So in the traditions of that lab, the people involved with that, he's done some really interesting work on interactivity, done a lot of nice conceptual development around that concept. Also superbly trained as a methodologist, especially relating to physiology, psychophysiology. So he does some really cool experimental research using these. He's got a pretty interesting background as well, has a background as a mechanical engineer, and then worked in the magazine industry in a variety of different roles. But also he's got some pretty interesting experiences as an entrepreneur. So he started a startup company back in the day before we even had social media. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
A company called NeoBits. So unlike most of us sitting here, this was quite a lucrative business. So it got taken over by somebody. So I'm glad to say that Chen-Chao was going to buy us all dinner later tonight.
Okay, no problem.
So he is got a very productive career. Department at Taiwan as well. We need to be looking at Chen-Chao as a potential candidate. He just has this gift and knack for getting money from people. He's published in several of our top journals, New Media and Society, Cyber Psychology and Behavior, of course, Journal of Communication, Media Psychology, Human Communication Research. So he's got a great record. And today, he's right now a Fulbright Scholar at Ohio State University. So when he touched base and said that he had some time to come here, I was delighted that he could take some time off to come here. So he's going to be talking to us today about some research on eye tracking, which I know a lot of people are interested in here, but surprisingly, we don't have much of a audience today. I know that the folks in information science said they would look up the video later, but anyway, welcome to chat with them.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shi. So, I got my PhD in 2006, then I went back to Taiwan. I haven't speak English for almost 7 years. So if my English is not clear enough, just stop me, just ask question. My name is Chen-Chao, and then my lab is communication and cognition. So it's the logo of my lab, CC, both CC lab, Chen-Chao, and communication and cognition. So I'm from Taiwan, National Chiao University. Chiao means transportation, National Transportation University. So more related to engineering and communication technology, something like that. I will discuss my topic later. Ooh. Thank you for Shui's clear introduction of me. So my undergraduate background is engineering. So when I was young, I never thought I would become a professor. I would like to become an entrepreneur. So actually in 2000, I raised $1 million. So start up an internet company. Yeah. I have a question for you. Anybody know what happened in 2000? Based on history of the internet, I have a small gift. It's a bookmark from Taiwan. Anybody know what happened in 2000?
Bubble bird.
Yeah, great answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, in that time, I don't know, internet bubble began in 2000. So I have a huge courage to start up my company in 2000. So of course, I burned $1 million. And fortunately, my company was acquired in 2003. But I didn't earn a lot of money. But I can still buy a dinner tonight. Yeah. So based on my daughter's comment, it's a dream end, not dream come true. So in 2000, my wife decided to come to US to get a PhD. So fortunately, I got funding from Indiana University. So I went there, spent 3 years there. So Indiana University opened a new door for me, letting me know the cognitive approach. I can use different kind of theory from psychology and equipment to do scientific research. So Then I went back to Taiwan, so my research interest is cognitive approach to media and social network analysis. Because my background is engineering, I love math. I love deal with numbers, so totally math, so that's great. Currently, I'm an associate editor of a journal, Information Society. I think you may have heard about that. Here is a media psychology workshop in Taiwan. I invited a lot of faculty members I know at Indiana University and from Japan and Korea. This is the first psychological workshop in Taiwan. Okay. For the past 6 years, I think my research interest focused on this question. So, how complex information interact with mental processes and what effect result from that interaction over time. This research question involves 4 key concepts. The first is complex information. What is a complex information? So we should define it. I proposed 2 major. The first is information complexity. Okay, compare New York Times and the USA Today. You can know the language is different, the terms different, the grammar is different, the structure is different. If you read the paper compared to Entertainment Weekly, it's an information complexity. Okay. Structure complexity more related to like a post-production or the website use a lot of animation or multimedia. It's related to the structure feature. So it will influence in complex information. And the second key concept is mental process. I'm more interested in distribution of attention. When we process complex information, how we allocate cognitive resource in different parts. Especially from the perspective of working memory. Okay, what is working memory? Yeah, if I ask you what did you eat this morning or what did you wear yesterday, you are using your working memory. You try to retrieve something in your long-term memory and activate in your working memory. Then you can tell me. Or usually I will say, web search is very typical working memory task. Working memory tasks involve processing and the storage at the same time. When you search online, there's a 10 search result list. So you read the first one, it is processing. Or the first one match your goal. You may keep something in your mind. I will check later because I need to compare all search results. So you will continue read the second result, then processing and the storage at the same time. Your first search result still storage in your mind, but you have to process it the second result. So it's a job involving processing and storage at the same time. It's a typical working memory task. Web searching is a very typical experiment example. And the process involved in working memory, like encoding the PowerPoint into your mind, then storage or retrieval. You may think about my talk tomorrow. So it's all process involved in working memory. What effects? Most of my dependent variable are memory. Usually I would like to know whether or how to design a message to let people remember the content or remember the gist of the message. So I use a lot of memory. Recently, I use implicit attitude. Especially, I did some research related to health. If you ask people smoking, everybody will tell you smoking is the best thing. You cannot measure their real attitude. We have to use implicit measure to understand they like smoking or they like garbage food, something like that, but they will not tell you. So here are 3 main key concepts. There's one more important thing is over time. Actually, information processing is a time dependent. We change every second. So we should modeling or the previous time point will influence the next time point. So it's a continuous process. So it's involve a modeling or we need a lot of new mathematical tool to solve this issue. But it's not easy. I will mention at the end of my talk. Okay. So basically, this research I'm interested in. Before my talk, I will briefly introduce eye tracking. In the past 6 years, I used 3 different kinds of eye tracker. Here is the first one, eye gaze. If you read paper in our literature, in aerial communication, in the earlier day, paper related to eye tracker about how people read newspaper. All those studies use eye gaze. It's a very old version. You can see the camera is here. So the camera has two functions. The first, take picture of your eye. Take picture. Use information processing to identify the center of your pupil. That's the first thing. So for example, people like me have very small eyes, they usually identify the wrong center. So I cannot do eye tracking study. So you have to check the size of the eye first. The second thing, they will emit infrared into your eye. So there is a reflection on your eye. So based on these 2 points, we can know where you look at on the screen. I think that's a basic idea of eye tracking. So this is the machine, the tracker I bought in 2006. In that time, there's no software. So I got the raw data of your left eye and the right eye. I have to write program to analyze by myself. So here is the second one, Tobii. I think Tobii right now is the top brand. If you read Wall Street Journal, you will know Apple or Intel invest in Tobii. In the past, I think right now Samsung already incorporated eye movement, eye tracking in a smartphone. And I think in the past, all Apple-related product will use Tobii. Tobii then is like just like a computer, incorporate everything. You will not see camera anymore. And there is 6 camera here, at least 6. So for this one, the subject cannot move. They have to fix it. Otherwise, I cannot track it. But for the second one, subject can freely move their head because there are 6 cameras. They will switch based on your position. So it's more easy for participant, for subject, and for us to do research. 120 represent a hertz. It's sample 120 times every second. So actually, this frequency is not enough. It's good for your fixation, but not good for your saccade because we will move our eye frequently. So here's the new one. I just upgraded to Tobii TX300. So it's 300 hertz. It's a minimum requirement for we to recall fixation and the saccade at the same time. The second difference, I can change the screen. So right now I'm doing a 3D study, so I can use a 3D screen. No matter it's shot glasses or polarization glasses, or I can put iPad here, or I can put smartphone here. So I can even put the eye tracker here. You can watch the projector to know where you are looking at. So here is the new version of the eye tracker. So I have this 3 different kinds of eye tracker. I think I learned a lot from the first one because it's very tough, not easy to use. So I learned a lot. Yeah. Here, I just mentioned, the fundamental technology is the pupil center corneal reflection. So here is the center of the pupil. We use image processing to identify. Here is the reflection of the infrared. It's called Perkins. So based on these 2 points and the software and the modeling, so we can know where you look at the screen. Of course, we have to calibrate before each subject. There's some consistent different, so we have to calibrate. So here's the basic idea. And let me show everything. Here is the basic movement of every eye. Actually, our eye never still. Our eye always move. Because of the evolution, if our eye still, our eye will blind. It's a habituation. Your brain will think there's nothing changed. I should turn off. Save energy. To save cognitive resources, I have to process other information. So your eye always move on. It's a very small. But if here is the time dimension, here is the fixation, we just consider one axis. So you will stay here for certain time, fixation. Then you move. It's a saccade to different area. You usually will move over the target, and then you have to come back, and it's a fixation. It's a fixation. So here is a basic idea of our eye movement. This diagram involves a lot of questions. For example, what is the criteria should be used as a fixation? I stay here for 50 milliseconds, 100 milliseconds, 150 milliseconds, which should be the minimal requirement for fixation. So different scholars have different idea. So usually we'll use 100 or 100 milliseconds. So it will seriously influence your result. And usually when you get an eye tracker, you have to setting every different kind of variable to decide it. The second is the velocity. For here should be considered as a fixation or saccade. The velocity should be 0, or we should have a range. So different scholars have different opinion. So all this involve subjective decision to set up the environment. Usually, based on my experience, 150 milliseconds may be too high. We can reduce it to about 100 milliseconds because we are in the area of communication. You always consider practical importance. My study may have a very significant contribution in theoretical issue, but may not in practical environment, because for all my experiment, participants know nothing. For my memory test, I will mention later. So here is the basic movement of your eye, and you have to decide the minimal requirement of fixation and the saccade. And here is the calibration. For each subject, we will do 9 or 5-point calibration. Usually, I get a new tracker. I will test its accuracy. So here is the test for TX300. So you will see for the top 3 points, the accuracy is not good enough. As is good enough. I ask participants to look here, but it's about left and down. Look here, it's about down. From here, it's about right and down. So after the exam, so I know I cannot put stimulus in this area because it will not tell me the accurate result. So I have to avoid this area. Okay. Here is for single eye. Because we have 2 eyes. Eye tracker will propose you the X and the Y for your right eye and XY for your left eye. But we only look at 1 point on the screen. So what is the 1 point based on your 2 eyes? Anybody know that? Very simple, just average it. So it's average. So for these 2, I ask participants to cover one of your eye and to check. Here should be not accurate because the topic still average the distance between the 2 eyes, but they lost the information of 1 eye. So these 2, I just use to double check how they compute the actual position of where you look at it. Okay, my study, my research idea study from here. So here, So here's working memory. So we think people has limited capacity about their working memory, so we cannot process a lot of information. There are 2 main tasks. One is maintenance, one is inhibition. We always process some garbage, some distractor into our working memory. We have to delete it. We have to erase it. For example, as I just mentioned, here's the web search. Here is the search result. Here is the distractor. You have to process and storage search result, and you have to inhibit. Don't let the ads distract you. Okay. Here is the news. When you read the news, you usually find there's a link within a task. It's an in-text link. Usually, in-text link has 2 meanings. Okay. One is belong to the context related to the article. The second is an action. Click it. It will lead you to other position. So it means true type. The same thing have 2 different meanings. So I think everybody have the same experience. You read the article and found the link is interesting, but you want to finish the article first. So you will keep the link in your working memory. So the same thing, processing and the storage at the same time. So after you read the paper, you may forget. I want to check something, but I forgot it. So it's a balance between maintenance and the inhibition. So if you increase the demand on maintenance, you will lose the ability to inhibit distractor. You will keep a lot of garbage in your memory. That's the basic idea of my start point of my first research track about web search. Okay, so for my first study, I asked participants to remember, here is the search goal. There's a physical feature and the price range. Participant has 15 seconds to memorize it. Then I show the search result. There are only 5 search results. They are asked to process from the top to bottom and read and memorize. For the first one, okay, it match the search goal. So they have to memorize the brand name and the price. So if there are 6 relevant search results, at the end of the task, there are 6 items should be stored in their working memory. So during their processing, okay, so can you see there's okay, about past 3 seconds, there's ad pop up to interrupt, try to capture their attention. And I think because still at the beginning, maybe just 1 or 2 relevant search results, a lot of resources left give me ability to inhibit the ads. So I will not remember anything, or I will not move my eye to this area, Okay, so they continue, read it, and then complete the task. The second condition, sorry, does it work? Okay, here is the second condition. So they continue read, but the ads appear later, after 10 seconds. For the first condition, early ads, the ads appear at the 3 seconds. But for the late ad condition, the ads appear after 10 seconds. So I think right now, maybe your working memory is full of brand name and the price. No resources left to inhibit the irrelevant ads. So you may move your eye to this area, or you may remember the ads. This is the basic idea of my first experiment. In that time, I don't have eye tracker. I only use memory test. So, okay, sorry. Here is the design of the first research. Information capacity defined by the number of relevant search results. So it's 1 low, 3 medium, or 5 is high. Okay, I think everybody knows the magic number. Okay, magic number is 7 plus or minus 2. It's by Miller. Okay, actually, cognitive psychology start from Miller. Miller is effective in actually language and communication. Come from our area. But right now, quant thing is just 4. Not 7. It should be 4 minus or plus 2. We will see based on experiment. Okay. So theoretical argument, complex information increase working memory load. Okay. Working memory load is resources required for maintenance or storage. The higher the working memory load, the less cognitive resources are available for inhibition, as I just mentioned. So if for the late ad, it may easier to capture your attention compared to the early ads. Okay. Here the hypothesis. Okay, for my search result, I found serious flow effects. It means actually participants remember nothing about the ads. Based on signal detection, if you guess, it's about 50%, but it's below about 40%. So I found the task is too difficult. So I tried to find other contribution of my study. So I devised a new measure, okay, efficiency of working memory and the capacity limit. I think people's working memory actually is not efficiency. We always remember a lot of garbage, or we want to delete it, but we fail to delete. So I equal to the number of irrelevant items held in your working memory divided by the total number of items held in your working memory. For example, for each trial, I ask participants to write down the brand name and the price. They may write down 11 items, okay, but only 1 is correct. So it's a 10 divided by 11. It's the percentage of incorrect items held in their working memory. So here's the average. So more than 1/4 item held in working memory actually is irrelevant to the search result. People remember the incorrect brand name or price in their working memory. We can see some people even close to 60% or 70%. Actually, our working memory is very inefficiency. And consider the magic number. I found maybe Kwong is right. So average is between 3 and 4. The maximum is 6. So no more 7 plus or minus 2, I think. Based on my current study, it's about 60 participants. Yeah, a lot of people. Okay, so I did my second study about web search. So in Taiwan, okay, it's Yahoo is a search page. Yahoo is the top 1 website in Taiwan. So did the same thing. There are some different. For this time, I changed the ads. Instead of meaningless animal, I use text ads, more close to the real situation. And I can manipulate the text ad, put the relevant or irrelevant term here. Okay, so here is the one difference. So still 5 search results. There are some differences. You will see a video later. So here, for my second study, I began to use eye tracker. So here is the area of interest. I would like to know, if I want to know the primary task, how many time participants spend on search result, whether ads will interfere with primary task, increase the processing time of primary task. So I can just put a rectangle and understand how many time here, with and without ads, or with relevant or irrelevant search term will influence the primary task. Yeah, here is the difference. So I did some modification. So each search return 5 items, of which right now just 2 conditions, 1 or 4. Because for my first experiment, it spent about more than 1 hour. Every participant feel tired. It's impossible actually. So I have to change the short to about just 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Okay, so text ads replace animal drawing with a color rectangle. So hypothesis is similar. I use eye movement. Oh, sorry, I didn't put a video. So for my second study, I found significant result about eye movement. So for the high working memory low condition, people will look at the text ads, but still has no memory result. Participants know nothing. They cannot remember anything related to the text ads, although the fixation, duration, and number of fixation is higher. Okay. For my third study related to search, here's e-commerce, also Yahoo like Amazon. So you will see product here, all related to digital camera. Here is the text ads, here is the display ads. I argue search through text and search through image should be different. Search through image may be easier than search through text. So here is the photo. Here is the brand, the seller, the name, the color, and the physical feature. The same for every ads. The same for every product. So information complexity defined by the type of content. Search through text, primary reading. Search through image, searching or scanning. So complex information increase perceptual law. I introduced a new concept from psychology. Perceptual law is resources required for encoding. When you read an academic paper, it's high perceptual law. You will narrow your attentional window and focus on the task. But if you watch television, it's low perceptual law. You may hear something your mom say, you may watch television at the same time, do something, multitasking, for example. Right now it's very popular. So it's a low perceptual law. But you cannot read an academic paper and listen to music at the same time. It's a high perceptual law. The higher the perceptual law, the less cognitive resources available for distractor processing. So when you read the paper, it's not easy to interrupt you. But if you watch the television, it's easy to interrupt you because of the cognitive resources left for processing other tasks. That's my main argument. Okay, here's the video. I'm not sure whether I can play it. Oh, yeah, wonderful. Okay. So memorize the search goal. Okay. They have to type in different. They have to type in the search result. Not just, and make sure they correctly remember the search result. Then you will see so very fast. And here's the correct result. The bigger, the more time spent here, the participant try to memorize the brand here. So we look at it again. Sorry.
Go through that again.
Okay. Okay. So type in the search term. You will see, look at the first one, then look at the ads. This condition is searched through image, relatively easy. So the participant look at the text ad and the display ad immediately. So it's basically support my idea, but participants still remember nothing about the text ads. So no memory effect, no practical importance about my study. Okay. Then above is the first research track. The second, I'm interested in emotional content. So from my background, so it's dimensional theory of emotion. We think emotion can be defined and arousal. So valence is positive and negative. Arousal is high arousal and low arousal. Then we can find 4 different kinds of emotional content. High arousal negative, low arousal negative, high arousal positive, low arousal positive. I let participants solve 5 slides, slide by slide. Here is the first slide. Okay. Neutral for 3 seconds. Here is the second slide. Neutral for 3 seconds. Here is the third slide, emotional content for 3 seconds, and based on the condition. And at the same time, there's a secondary test. Participant will they have to push the button as soon as possible. So the basic idea, if emotional content will attract and lock your current resources, there's no resources left to perform secondary task. The time will be longer. To push the button. Okay, for the fourth slide, it's neutral, 3 seconds. Still have a secondary task and then the last slide. And for every, it's a storyline. It's a tale story based on 5 different slides. And after the task, I ask participants to do Q recall. They will see the first 2 slides, and I will ask, do you remember anything from the third slide? Write down everything you remember from the third slide. Here's the Q. Here's the Q. So, okay, I just showed the Q. Okay, information complexity defined by valence and arousal. Different combination of valence and arousal may have a different effect on working memory. Okay, maybe as here say, highly arousing negative content may automatically and lock your cognitive resource, no resources left for process other information. So based on current literature, highly arousing negative content may activate irrelevant information in advance, because based on my past experiment, no memory effect. So for this one, I try to measure the incorrect item. Maybe some people think when we face negative content, it will activate our aversive system, avoidance system. So I have to prepare something to protect ourselves. So I will activate a lot of irrelevant information. So it's misfired. A lot of irrelevant information activated in your working memory. We already saw in a lot of eyewitness study. For eyewitness, they usually report the wrong thing. I wear a blue, but you may remember I wear yellow, so it's totally different. So may find some misdefining. So I use 2 new dependent measures. The first one is the number of incorrect items in Q recall. So you list everything you remembered in the third slide. I count how many incorrect items. Okay. The second thing, we use remember no judgment from psychology. So for each item, participant wrote down, I ask you to identify, you remember, no, or guess. Because we think there's 2 mechanisms related to recall. One is recollection, is consciously search what I remember, what I think really happened in the slide. The other is familiarity. I just familiar with this item. I'm not sure whether it exists in the slide. So remember representing recollection. No representing familiarity. Guess, just guess. I will not comment. So here is the idea of the first study of emotion. So here's the result. Okay. For secondary test reaction time for sound, we found our hypothesis is supported. Okay. We found for high arousal negative emotion, the secondary reaction time is slower. So actually, for high arousal negative may lack our cognitive resources. We will spend most of our resources in storing or processing emotional content. For the second, for the number of incorrect items in pure recall, valence has no effect, but arousal has effect. High arousal will lead to the larger number of incorrect items held in pure recall. Not for our hypothesis. For the third one, for the number of incorrect items in familiarity, our hypothesis is supported because we think misbind for emotional content will activate the more irrelevant information you will identify as familiarity. So here hypothesis is supported. But for the second one, our idea is we didn't find any effect about valence. Now, right now, I did a follow-up study. So, if my argument is right, for the emotional content, will lack your cognitive resources. For the fourth one, for the next slide, participants still have no cognitive resources to process it. So, participants should remember nothing about the fourth one. I would like to check the pure recall for the fourth slide. My second study about emotion is about the before and after ads. I think before and after is very popular in Asia, and I also found it's very popular in US. I watch television, a lot of ads related to before and after. There are two different types of before and after. The first is microsurgery or plastic surgery. Here is the after. Here's the before. Here's the before, after. Here's the before, after. The other is health related, PSA. So here's after smoking, before smoking, before drug, after drug use, before smoking, after smoking. So before and after has a very specific feature. We demonstrate positive and a negative picture at the same time. Because in the past, scholars think emotional content will capture your attention automatically. How about positive and a negative picture appear at the same time? Which one will be stronger? I think based on current literature, I found most studies compare emotional content with neutral content, or actually to search emotional content among a lot of neutral content. No study compare positive and a negative at the same time. But in our area, the before and the after is very popular. It's a good stimulant. That's for us, yeah. And in addition to plastic surgery and PSA, the second difference between these two is the underlying intention is totally different. For microsurgery, after is the goal. We would like the audience to do something, please to do the microsurgery. But for PSA, the underlying intention is please don't do that, stop smoking. So the action tendency is totally different. So if from a point of view of emotional content, we activate the same motivational system, then the influence about the attitude or behavior should be different. Maybe the before and after is good for microsurgery, it's not good for PSA. It doesn't work, it doesn't work. Always encourage people to do something. Okay, then people exposed to PSA, they still continue smoking, they continue drug use. It may be that. So I use attitude measure. That's why I use implicit attitude, because I didn't find any significant result on my study. Okay. And I also use new eye movement measure and new movement measure. So for each trial, participants have to look at the close first. So for everyone, we have the same start point. Then the stimulus is displayed. So participant will look at the left side, look at the right side, or look at the left side first to decide which will attract your attention first. Positive or negative, people will look at first. Negative, yeah, negative. 60% will look at the negative first, and then 40% will look at positive. And the second major about eye movement is attentional engagement. If you look at this area, how long you will stay here? So if here is a negative picture, so we don't like, we want to avoid it, but it's not easy for you. It still attracts you, so it's made like attentional engagement or attentional disengagement. Yeah, about some literature in psychology you see. So how long you will stay here? So we also find people will look at negative content first, and they will stay there longer, not easy. Okay. So here is a gaze duration. So here we have a 3 fixation point, but 1 gaze, because here is the continuous fixation on the same area can be counted as a gaze, Okay. So information complexity defined by conflict information. We display conflict information at the same time to participants. So emotional content seem to elicit automatic processes, receive prioritized attention, and they demand a considerable amount of resources. But no theory predicts which will capture attention first. So I propose 3 research questions. Positive or negative, stay longer or shorter? And the influence on attitude, okay? And the influence on attitude or the action tendency, as I just mentioned about the underlying intention. Here is a short video. They have to answer the same scale after every step. Okay. So very fast. So let's look at the negative first, then transfer to positive. Very short time. So here's the before and after act. So we display positive and negative content related to health communication or to plastic surgery to the participant at the same time. I found participants always look at the negative first and stay there longer, but I didn't find any significant result about the attitude change. That's right. So I'm doing the second one. I think I need new measure about the attitude. Here's the third track of my study related to visual. So I think product placement right now is very popular in Taiwan in every episode. But we never know whether people look at the product placement. So right now I have an eye tracker. I should know, I can observe whether participants really look at the ads. There are 2 different kinds of product placement. The first is placement proximity. So here is a person not related to the storyline. They just put, depends on the size, or in the center, or in the peripheral. It's a perceptual finding. You just expose to the video. Here is the degree of connection. The product placement related to the storyline. So it's a conceptual prime related to your thinking. So I'm arguing these 2 different product placement, we have to use different memory range to test it. Yeah. So here's a very short video. Okay, it's in Chinese. Okay, I don't know whether there's a sound. Oh.
今天很兴奋，居然发了一张好人卡给我。
It's a very popular episode in Taiwan.
今天也很多另类。不过说，要把它辨识一下。
So here's the product placement.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can tell. Here's the product placement. Not related to the storyline. So.
还是要继续当面强人。
No, yeah, we skip it in the end. Okay. Then arguably, for conceptual priming, it's a memory-based test. So we related to storyline, we have to use category association. For perceptual priming, it's the stimulus-based. So it depends on size and position. We have to use picture fragment and identification to do the memory to test whether present is a flat. Based on my result, I found placement proximity has significant effect on the choice, the brand name choice, or on category association on the memory. But for degree of connection, there's no effect. All participants know here is the X, so we'll show negative attitude toward the X. And I think here is the basic result, and the size has significant result, influence the effect of product placement. My second study related to video is about news. Right now, the television news is quite similar to web page. Separate to, I use a new term, it's a multiple information component. In the past, maybe television just one single information component, but right now it's a multiple. Here, so we have a anchor here, okay? Deliver audio information, deliver only. Here is a video, deliver visual information. So I also switch if you want balance, left or right side, right side. So in here, we manipulate the number of cut or the structure feature of the video. So, and the second independent variable, I ask participant to look at the anchor or look at the video or you free browse. I show them different results. And we found participants always look at the anchor first, no matter what instruction I give them. And the structural feature, the number of cut, will significantly influence the memory of audio information. So if here has a lot of cut, I use the recognition, the performance of recognition will be significantly decreased. Okay. So here's the AOI based on current software. It can perfectly match what you are looking at. So I will check the filtration duration of number of filtration stay in this area. How long participant will stay here? Will they look at here first? I tell them look at the anchor. Will they look at the audio? When they will look at the video. Here's a show. Here's a long video. I just show small part. So you will see here is a lot of change. So it's a post-production. I count the number of post-production per second to decide the structure feature. So the larger the structure feature, the lower the recognition result about the audio information. Okay. Well, almost 3. Okay. So I already mentioned the result. So I found the face will track people's eye, just like we found in psychology. And when people face a multimodality information, visual will influence audio. So if we have a larger structure capacity, the memory of the audio information will be damaged. The next study I developed again on Facebook. So very easy. So the primary test is shoot the red balloon. So here is the red balloon is the target, and the gray balloon is non-target. And here is the low perceptual condition. As I mentioned at the beginning of my talk, perceptual is the resource required for encoding. Okay? Here is the high perceptual low condition. The same shoot the red balloon, but the other is colorful. It's not easy to distinguish. So here is the high and low perceptual. In addition, there is a distractor. There is a flag in this area, and it will influence your shooting. And there is an in-game act on distractor or on target. Okay. So I would like to know whether perceptual law will influence your memory about the ads. Okay. When we look at the ads on the target or on the distractor. So because of the time, so I jump to my result directly. Based on the result, in the condition of high perceptual, like this situation, you will narrow your attentional window on target. So you will remember nothing, and there's no eye movement on distractor, on the ads, on fly. But in a low perceptual condition, a lot of cognitive resources left. So you will process and remember something on the distractor. Okay, here's the video, so I will skip it. So here's my concluding remark. So I mentioned I use eye tracking as an indicator of attention. My original idea, I would like to know media feature, especially information complexity and the structural complexity, will influence the distribution of attention and influence the memory. So I use content and structure as an operational definition. I use eye movement as an indicator of attention. I use recognition, recall, or like a remember now paradigm as a memory feature. But I found most of study, content structure will influence recognition of recall directly. Content and structure may or may not influence eye movement, but eye movement never predict the memory. I think, but in current literature, most studies say the longer you stay in specific area, you will memorize better. But based on my stuff, it's not this situation and this situation. So for 7 months, I stay at Ohio State. My main purpose, I think there are some possibility reason. The first is a cover attention. Actually, we can process peripheral information without move our eye. Although it's a certain visual angle, not too far. It's a possible solution. For my main interest, I think we need a new measure of eye movement. Current measure of eye movement, I think nobody challenged it. When I prepare a meta-analysis to see whether, based on this study, whether fixation duration or number of fixation can predict the memory result. We can see here 3 different patterns. If you use fixation duration or number of fixation, will give you the same number. But for the first pattern, we may argue this area is very interesting, so participants continue staying. But for here, this may be a distractor. So participants attract but leave immediately, but continue interfere with their primary task. So we may need a new measure to indicate, to build a relationship between eye movement and attention. The third is we may need different statistical methods, so like generalized estimate equation. Because eye movement is a time-dependent nature, and we have a lot of not missing middle, no value, we should say, because people didn't look at the ads. So you will have a lot of zero. Not many people move their eye and look at the ads on the left side. So we have to, I found generalized estimating equation is from biology, is specifically for time dependent and a lot of missing value. So I think we should use different. And for Fourier transformation, because my background is engineering, so it's a different, because I'm doing a study related to 3D. I asked participants to watch a 3D movie, and for 3D, your accommodation, your focus should be here, but the object is here, but actually it's air. So you have to convert here, but focus should be here. So it's a dissociate between accommodation and conversion. So we have to close our eye. It's not stable. So eye tracking can give me information about the aperture here, because you close your eye, so there's an aperture here. I have a time aperture relationship. I use Fourier transformation can transport to a frequency time. relationship. So the high frequency represents difficult. So maybe the objects too close to you is not easy for you to convert because difficult to dissociate between accommodation and convergence. The frequency should be very high. That's because current iterator cannot provide any information related to depth. That's my idea. The second thing I'm working on is I think in the digital world, actually everything involves current control. So I would like to propose a new model related to current control. You want to, for example, multitasking, or you want to play smartphone, watch television, listen to your parents at the same time. It's a current control. How you distribute your attention in different tasks. What is your primary task? We're always looking for balance between different tasks. It's a cognitive control. So I would like to think about propose a cognitive control model about information processing. Okay, so I will skip it. Okay, here is OHIO. I'm currently there, they asked me to do. The professor told me every visiting scholar has to do that. So here's me representing OHIO, Joyce Lab, Jen's Lab. Okay, thank you very much. This is my talk.
Thank you very much. This is a wonderful summary of everything that you've done.
Yeah,
overwhelming almost. I wanted to ask you a question about the, one of the last studies you presented about the conceptual and perceptual priming and the placement of the ads in the environment.
Yes.
I wonder if even though the woman holding the cup, even though she might be referring to that in the narrative, I almost wonder, because that is still an image, it's still a symbol, and it's still based on the logo, the icon of the company, it makes me wonder if that really maybe isn't just another perceptual prime, as opposed to being a conceptual prime. Like if that was an image of a dog and you were being asked to recall, a Rottweiler or a Dalmatian or a type of dog when you're primed with the general category, to me that's still, I guess, what are your thoughts on that? Because if you think about it as another perceptual prime, then that's basically a smaller, less visible.
Okay, I think this is a very good question. For this study, actually, we spend a lot of time to do a stimulus. So for degree of connection we have, we select stimulus based on two criteria. The first, they have to mention, as you mentioned in a narrative, they have to mention, and this will become a focus. We will say it's an attentional focus during the video. Okay, significantly mentioned, and it's an attentional focus. That's the basic criteria. But I think that still an issue may not very significantly may become a perceptual priming. Yeah, but right now I based on this criteria to select stimulus. Yeah.
The reason I asked, a recent dissertation advisee was working here, but also working with Neil Mulligan in our psychology department just down the street, and he's.
I saw the most ugly one.
Somebody it's not beautiful. No.
It is the ugliest.
Yeah. But,
sorry about that. Too straight.
It doesn't offend me. I'm glad we're in a very nice building. But Neil Mulligan is his work is basically his contribution to the literature is the TAP framework, where he is basically trying to differentiate between perceptual and conceptual primes. And during this the student's dissertation, and after my brief conversations with Neil after the fact, he was telling me how difficult it's been to operationalize a conceptual prime, because there are so many instances where it really crosses over, it really doesn't become conceptual. And that the example you have is one of the examples that we had talked about as, well, is this or not? So it made me curious as to how you operationalize it, because it seems like a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah,
I don't have an answer for it.
yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, as I just mentioned, I use this criteria. They have to mention narrative and they have to become attentional focus.
Okay.
That's the two criteria right now we are used. But I cannot exclude the influence from perceptual prime maze theory, because the video is very short, just 30 seconds, and participant will easily know your purpose. Right now you are testing a product placement, so they will pay attention to the product no matter. So we have 12 video clips related to product placement. We have to use additional track, so to mix that, let them cannot guess it, because the first time, wow, suddenly we have to give up. No, there's no way to do that, so we have to change it. So, but I have additional data about eye tracking that can tell me something, whether they actually look at it when they become an attentional focus, whether participant will look at it. Yeah, so I think for my current situation, my definition may not have a better result. Yeah, and I will continue to look for. Maybe we have more, I think, very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Because we spend a lot of time here, we will continue to do that. This study have very significant, attract a lot of practical attention. A lot of people in industry interested in this study, and because we can show whether people actually look at the product placement, it's very direct result. Yes.
So you use Toby TX300?
Yes.
So if you had to, if you had unlimited money, what other applications would you use?
I don't have unlimited money.
No, I said if you had unlimited money to get an eye tracking system. So in other words, I'm trying to drive at that. What are the limitations of this Toby? And as you know, Toby has generated other things, or any eye tracking system. What are the limitations?
I think currently the top three brands is Toby and SNI and iLink. In psychiatry, most of people use iLink. There is high frequency. It's 2,000. So sample 2,000 times, 1 second. The limitation is the participant has to be fixed. You have to use a chain rest or you buy something.